Hello, everyone, and welcome to number 13 of this podcast. We've got today with us Kelly Hughes. Hi, Kelly. Welcome. Thank you very much for volunteering to come to this podcast.
Well, thank you for having me.
Pleasure. And anytime, by the way, this is recorded, so anytime you want. So I'd like to introduce you, Kelly, to our students. You're a senior lecturer and you are a subject lead for postgraduate law. You teach dispute resolution on the SQE LLM and also the module leader for law and medicine on the undergraduate LLB. And before you joined DMU, you were a solicitor for about 5.5 years and you specialized in personal injury and clinical negligence.
I did. Thank you
Good,
so
good.
much for the nice introduction.
Well, thank you. Every time I have someone on the podcast, I ask them this question, do you have anything interesting or a bit out there or that we don't know of that you want to share with the students about yourself?
Yeah, I guess I do. So most students probably won't know this, and I don't think you knew this, Eleanor, when I mentioned this to you before. But I used to roller skate for Great Britain a long time ago, I would add. But yeah, so very similar to what you see kind of on the ice skating on the television with all the jumps and the spins and stuff. That's what I used to do, but on roller skates. So yeah, that's my fun fact, I guess.
Oh, it's brilliant. Yeah, you said that you were judging afterwards as well. You got
Yeah,
onto.
so I did, yeah, absolutely. So I went on to do judging for a couple of years after that as well. So yeah.
Right on. Very, very nice. Maybe one day we can see you doing it around the
I'll
campus.
turn up. I'll turn up on campus on skates one day.
Yeah, just see DMU campus, are gonna record you. So anyway, today we came together to talk about how to properly cite legal sources, a guide to referencing. So Kelly, are you ready to talk to us about this? Because I'm going to ask you, why do you think this topic is important? Like everybody else has to say this and convince us that their topic is the most important because.
It is the most important. I've not got one reason, I've got five.
Oh.
Okay, so first and foremost, reason number one why it's so important is accuracy and authority. If you are going to be relying on cases or statutes or academic journals to form your legal arguments in your coursework or even in your oral presentations, being able to cite your sources correctly ensures that the reader or the marker, and that's the most important thing at this stage is the marker, can locate and verify those sources. Okay, so we can ensure that those sources that you are using to base your legal arguments on are accurate. So that's reason number one. Reason number two then is professional standards. There is an expectation that any academic, and that will include students and staff, will reference it using OSCOLA, and I'll talk a little bit more about OSCOLA later. Proper citation shows that you're not only adhering to the expected standards, but it shows professionalism and also an attention to detail. So that's reason number two. Reason number three is credibility. Proper citation lends itself to credibility, or lends credibility to your argument, because they show that your arguments are based on established legal principles or established arguments. And so without that citation, I don't know where your legal arguments have necessarily come from. Fourthly is it has the potential for avoiding plagiarism. And plagiarism is an academic offence. If you are citing sources correctly, you can avoid plagiarism by giving credit to the person or the original source, or giving credit to the original author, be that a judge or an academic writing in an academic journal. And then the fifth reason is clarity. Provides clarity for the reader, provides clarity for the marker. And that's because citations provide a reference that can be followed by that reader. So if they want to find out more, they want to check that source, they want to check that article, they can do, because you have cited it properly, and therefore I can go and clarify your arguments, go and clarify your points that you are making. So they're my 5 reasons why this is the most important topic.
Oh, that's good. They're 5 very important reasons. I mean, whenever we talk about referencing, I think we touch a lot upon those. But yeah, it's doing it right. What we
Yes.
are here to talk about how to do it right. And earlier you were talking about a scholar. So let's talk about the style of referencing. I mean, this is ACO assessments. It's not in the title, but this is for law students. We've got legal writing, advocacy, legal arguments, and hopefully that will set it out very clearly. So yes, let's talk about citation style. Um,
Yes.
but
So
but but start with the important one.
yeah, so the most important one is Oscola, and most of you should be using Oscola whilst you're studying a law degree, regardless of the level that you're at. So if you're a year 1 undergraduate student, or you're kind of level 7 postgraduate student, you should be using Oscola. And Oscola stands for the Oxford University Standard for Citation of Legal Authorities. Now, if you have studied law abroad, or you've studied a different subject here or abroad, you will have probably used different styles. So you might have used the Blue Book if you studied it in the US, or you studied law in the US, or if you've studied a different subject, you probably have come across Harvard referencing. But it's really important that we are using Oscola for all of your courseworks whilst you're with us at DMU.
Mm, I like that. I like that. And just one little bit, it's very interesting. I had a student doing an LLM dissertation yesterday. I was speaking with her, and she said, why did you say that my referencing is not correct? 'Cause I can assure you, I was going through it and it was so clear and so good. And so, it's really good to be in touch with your work and think, oh, I'm doing such a brilliant work. It's a good place to be. But then I was sharing the document she had sent to me, this chapter, and I went through it bit by bit. And I think students are just I've done that myself. I was doing my PhD and I was thinking, I know how to School of Reference so well. So far, after doing 3 degrees and then getting to a 4, do you think, yeah, I think I can handle this. But no, guys, it doesn't matter how many degrees you still make mistakes. And
Yeah.
and we still make, obviously, when we're marking your paper, is less likely that we're going to make mistakes because we're in the marker mode. When we're marking our own papers, when we're looking at our own papers, is when the issue arises, like, no, you can just overlook certain things.
Yeah, I
So
mean,
yeah.
the best thing to do, and I always advise this to my students, is to have the Oscola guide. And we'll talk a little bit more about how to cite in a moment, but having the Oscola guide up. So every time I'm referencing something, I'm double checking how it should look. And that's the
Oh,
best thing you
thank
can do.
you.
Even if you think you know, if you've got that confidence in
Yes.
your own work, there's no harm in double checking.
Yeah, yeah. That's good. That's good. So, should we talk about the sources, primary, secondary, and what do you spread it on a cracker? I seem to want to spread everything on a cracker. Well, yeah. Make us understand all of this.
Okay, so like I said, we'll start with primary and secondary sources. So when we refer to primary sources, if any of your tutors refers to primary sources, what they're referring to is case law and statute. Okay, that's what they're referring to when they're referring to primary sources. Secondary sources then is basically anything else. So textbooks, academic journals, but that's what they mean when they're talking about secondary sources. And primary and secondary sources should all be then referenced in your piece. You should be citing those in your footnotes and in your bibliography as well.
Super. So, are you going to tell us about them then?
I
Unpack
will.
each one. Let's talk about cases. Let's start with the oldies.
Okay, before I go through all of these, I'm going to just give my disclaimer. So
Oh.
everything that I'm about to say is the bare basics. So I boiled it down to its kind of very kind of tight, kind of a very kind of limited version of it. But a lot of what I'm going to say will depend on how you've stated it in your text before you reference it, whether it appears in your footnotes or your bibliography. So just bear that in mind. I will kind of direct you to some resources that can help with that later on. But in terms of cases, the very first thing is it should be the full case name, okay, and in italics as well. And then there should be a V, like the letter V, between the two names, and that V should be a lowercase v. Now, the reason I say that it should be a lowercase
Oh, I seem to have lost you, Kelly, for like 5, 6
can you hear me
seconds.
now?
I can, yes.
Okay,
There's a glitch in the system. So could
okay,
we, yeah,
yeah,
could you start again?
I'll
You were talking about the title and you said it should be in italics. You started talking about the V between the
yeah,
party names, and
okay.
then you were silenced and I got worried. But no, we just
Okay,
carry on. Keep
yeah.
going.
Okay, so the V, as I was talking about, the V should be lowercase. So I'm sure Eleanor probably has seen this. I've seen it lots of times. Students often put a capital V in between the names rather than a lowercase v.
Yes.
After that, then there should be the date of the case in square brackets, followed by the abbreviation for the law report. Now, the abbreviation will normally be AC, for example, which would be appeal court, WLR, which would be weekly law reports, and it's absolutely fine to use that abbreviation. And then the very last thing to add to that citation then is the page number. Now, in terms of citing cases in your coursework, it's absolutely fine just to put the name in the piece. I wouldn't expect to see the citation in the full piece. The citation should be kept to the footnote. All you're doing is wasting valuable words in your word count by putting the citation in.
Yeah, so I think that's a very good point, but also make sure, guys, that you are putting that in italics as well, in the bottom of the footnote. Because only yesterday, I think we were talking about it's not wrong to put the name. You've put the name in the text of the title of the case. You can still put it in the footnotes, but just be consistent. If you do put it, just keep putting it in the
Yes.
footnotes alongside the citation. Citations don't need to be in italics, do they?
No, and I think that's the
I
other confusion. I think that with
Yeah.
either students forget to take the take the italics off, or they go, oh, the case name should be in italics. It should all be in italics. But actually, that's not the case.
Yeah, and Kelly, you've mentioned the square brackets. I mean, I know that the new style is that, and by new style, I'm talking about after the 2000s with the neutral citation. But very often you'll have the round brackets because sometimes we'll be, especially for students that are starting off or principals that are so old that you have to use those. You will get the round brackets. So
Yes, yeah.
yeah, so there is that as well. So you don't just think, oh, I have to find this case and I've got to find the citation that has square brackets. Just a disclaimer there as well,
Yeah,
just in
this is
case.
it. Our scholar is tricky. Our scholar can be
Yes,
tricky in terms of referencing,
yes,
because they do have all of these kind of differences and idiosyncrasies and stuff like that. So Ellison's right. Kind of really
yeah,
old
yeah.
cases will have circle brackets, but more recent cases will have square.
Yeah, but very good. Like, your message really is just have the guide next to you because
Yes,
we're
yeah,
talking about the nitty-gritty now, but again, we make mistakes all the time as well. You just need to have it open next to you when you're writing an assessment. That's,
yeah,
no-brainer. Yeah.
absolutely, absolutely.
Are we ready to move on to legislation then?
Yeah, yeah. So legislation is quite easy to reference. So it should be the title of the act, followed by the year followed by the relevant section and subsection. So title of the act, the year, the relevant section and subsection. No italics, nothing in brackets. So quite easy. The only thing I would say, and I see again something I just see a lot of, and you might also see this. I see a lot of students put the in front of the act when they're referencing it. So, for example, the Offences Against the Person Act or the Occupiers Liability Act. But I've yet to come across an act that actually starts with the word the.
Yes.
So when you're putting it in the footnote, there shouldn't be any the at the start
Oh
of
no.
your statute.
I've seen it in the text. I've not seen it in the footnotes. That's very good.
I've seen it in footnotes. It also means that if you are when you are referring to it in the text, so if you're saying, you know, as per the Occupiers Liability Act, that the shouldn't be spelled with a capital letter because it doesn't form part of the name of the act.
Yeah. That's a very good point. I like that. What I do see with legislation, I think, is students forgetting to put capital letters for
Yeah, there is
the
that.
words,
Yeah.
all of the words in the statute, unless it's you know, nominal words like of or and you don't have to capitalize those, but the rest of them should have capital letters.
Yeah.
But I think also a good example, because you can refer to the same act that you've just referred to without having to say the act again in the next sentence, or the same paragraph maybe, if it really is holding together and the reader knows that you're still talking about the same act. You could say the 1998 Act or something along those lines, but not with a capital T or anything like that. Although the Act, 1998 Act, should be a capital A, because it's not an act as in an action, it is an actual document, and it's so we have to differentiate between those. But yeah, for me, it's the capital letters that students forget sometimes.
And you know, the thing is I appreciate when you're writing 2,000 or 3,000 words, it's so easy to do that, but that's why these ACs assessment, your kind of podcast, your assessment series has been put together so that students go, I need to make sure that I double check that. That's something that I need to make sure I'm doing.
Exactly. Brilliant. Well, shall we move on to secondary then? The secondary sources. Super.
Okay, so
I don't know, what do you want to start with?
I'll start with journals, and that's because and there's a reason why. I'll explain how to cite them, and I'll explain why I think journals are kind of one of the most important secondary sources. So in terms of kind of citing a legal journal, you start with the author's full name. I think there's this misconception in the footnotes that you only need to refer to their first name by the initial, but that's not true. Footnote at your bibliography, you would, but in your footnotes, you should be referring to the author's full name, followed by a comma. That comma often is missing then. Then you, in inverted commas, you put the title. So the title of whatever the journal is then put in inverted commas. Then the year in round brackets, and this is where the brackets comes back in, followed by the volume or the edition number. It might say volume, it might say edition, depending on what it says, depends on then kind of how you reference it. Followed by the journal name, followed by the page number. So that's how we reference legal journals. And the reason that I think that's one of the most important secondary sources, particularly for students who are in year 2 and year 3 and postgraduate particularly, is because legal journals is your gateway into critical analysis. And without referring to a legal journal, you're just not going to have the critical analysis that you need to be really getting those top marks.
I like that you said that. I mean, and it's good that you've started with the journals, because if you want to venture outside anywhere else, and of course, if you're engaging with journals, you are demonstrating that hopefully you're demonstrating your understanding of the topic. Delving into cases and legislation is like pretty much writing a report, as it were.
Yeah.
unless you're going through analysis, critical analysis. So then you're making your paper um, shape up in the legal argument sense. But when you're looking, you're going beyond that and you're going into journal articles, obviously you want the better ones, so as good as possible, look at Westlaw, LexisNexis and so forth for journal articles. But if you engage with those, it means you've looked, you look at what other authors have said in the area, in the topic, on the topic that you're talking about, and you can then compare and contrast even
Yeah.
the thoughts of authors, and then maybe create your own, because that's I think that's where the critical analysis comes from as well.
Yeah.
But I think the way we speak sometimes about giving guidance in terms of citations and the numbering and everything else, I don't want students to ever get the idea that you can't find the actual citation. You can find the citation. Every single paper out
Yes.
there will say, if to cite this, you cite it this way. So you've got the
100%.
information,
Yeah.
yes, but the likes of Hein Online or other sources that are not necessarily law related in any way, shape, or form, they'll give you the Harvard version of a citation. This is why we're saying this is how step by step, and a scholar will give you that information, because you have the information there already. You just need guidance on the order to put it into your but also, is it possible for us to talk about, you said about how we use it, the way we use it in the text, in the sense that we're going to add it to the footnotes, but with this one something changes in the bibliography, doesn't it? Because Oscola wants you to do a bibliography. So
Yes.
what do we do there? Because I know that there is a shift. Can we share that
Yeah.
shift?
So the
It
shift,
doesn't happen with cases or legislation. This is why I'm asking you now.
no, I mean, the shift really is that you put their surname first, followed by a comma, followed by their first name initial in the bibliography, which means that you can't just copy and paste what you put in your footnotes and put that into your bibliography, because the style of it in your footnote compared to your bibliography are different. So like you just said, it's not different with cases, it's exactly the same with cases, it's exactly the same really with legislation. But with journals and textbooks, it is different, unfortunately, which means that you can't just copy and paste.
Yes, that's good. And also, we always say, if you're just putting journal articles, just put them in what order? It is in
Alphabetical order. It needs to
alphabetical
be in
order.
alphabetical order.
It
Yeah,
is
that
alphabetical.
yeah.
And the same it goes for the cases,
Yeah.
but the legislation in the bibliography is chronological, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
And I
Okay.
suppose it's
Yeah.
important to note that kind of when we talk in terms of your bibliography, there should be kind of a table of cases, so a list of cases, a table of statute, and then your other
Oh, can we
sources.
talk about that? A
Yeah.
table of. Some students actually create a table. I said, it's just called a table of
It's
legends.
just
It's
called
actually
a
just a
table.
list,
Yeah.
guys. It's a list. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's a list of cases and a list of legislation. But to be fancy and to be in keeping with what those scholar is saying, then we just say table of
Yeah.
cases and table of legislation. Yeah.
Yeah. I get, yeah, I too have seen actual tables being put in. Like you said, it's just not required. Just a list of them is all
Yeah.
that's required.
Just the list, yeah. And make it look pretty as well. It was so nice when you get some bibliography and you just see all of the it's
I mean,
absolutely,
I I have to be honest,
it's candy for you, like eye candy. For me, it's
it is
eye
eye candy.
candy. It
The
really
very
is.
first thing I do when I'm marking a piece is scroll down to the bibliography.
Oh, see, we
Yeah,
should say this to students. We should
I do.
say this.
I scroll. I literally scroll through the whole piece and go down to the bibliography to see what's in there. That's
Yeah,
the very first thing I do,
yeah.
and then I start marking it.
Ah, very good. Guys, pay attention, please. What about websites, Kelly? What about
Okay.
websites?
Yeah, so I mean, what I'm going to say is that if you are finding things, so journals, cases, statutes on Westlaw or Lexis, this does not apply. So you don't need to be referencing Westlaw or Lexis if you find something on one of those websites. But if you find something on a website like the gov.uk website, then you would need to reference it like this. So firstly, the website name, so gov.uk, followed by then the title of the web page. So if you're looking at guidance or an article or something like that on a website, it will normally have kind of the title of that document, whatever that document might be. And that title needs to be in inverted speech marks again, inverted commas again. Then you need to put the full web address. So sometimes when we copy and paste web addresses from the address bar into a document, it will kind of put in abbreviated short form link. But what we're looking for is the full website address. So if it kind of corrects it from kind of the long form email address into a short form, you will need to revert that back. Then you need to put in something called angle brackets. Now, angled brackets are those V's that look like they're kind of fallen over, and they normally point in the opposite that. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, kind of like that. You can do it better than I can.
Well, I'm not sure that I am.
Yeah,
Are
kind of like
they are
that. There we
that
go.
way
And there's
or
one
that
pointed
way?
each way. Yeah.
But they have to be hugging. I think I could say
Yeah.
they have to be hugging the text, right?
Yeah, absolutely. So the kind of they need to be pointing away from what you're just about to put, which is the access date. So the date that you went on that website and you found that information. And basically the access date needs to be in day. So I don't know, the 27th, followed by the month, September, followed by the year 2024, whatever it might be. Okay. But yeah, we often either don't see the access date, and I need that because that's our Scholar, or we don't see the angled brackets.
Yeah, that's good. That's good. I like
And
that.
hopefully you understand what mine and Eleanor's kind of sign language
Yeah,
was,
I
trying
know.
to demonstrate what the angled brackets look
Um,
like.
well, so I think on my keyboard next to the shift button, the main shift button, not the one to the left, the main one in the middle-ish. Um, I've got a button with a question sign, and then you've got those two buttons
Yeah,
coming after it. It might be a little bit different for others.
it is exactly the same as mine. Yeah, so it's the one
Yeah,
next to the question mark one.
yeah.
It's probably easier than trying
But
to kind of
mine
demonstrate
is
with our
not,
hands.
yeah, mine is not an Apple, so I don't know an Apple version what that would
Yeah,
have. But
I'm on. Yeah.
you get the point. You get the gist of what we're talking about. Brilliant. Let's move on to an important one as well, books, textbooks.
Yeah, textbooks. So textbooks is kind of similar to journals, but there are a couple of differences. So again, we start with the full name. So that whoever's written it, the author of the book needs their first name and surname in the footnotes. Again, different in the bibliography. Followed by the title. Now the title needs to be in italics this time. So unlike in journals where the title is not in italics, the title of a textbook would be.
Mm.
Then we put in brackets the edition. So is it the 4th edition, the 6th edition, the 7th, whatever it might be, unless it's the 1st edition, in which case you don't need to put 1st edition. The inference is if you don't put the edition that it's in, that it is the 1st edition. That's why you don't have to put that. But if it's anything kind of 2nd edition or above, then you need to include that. Then you need to put in the publisher. So a lot of what you'll be finding on Law Trove, for example, will be OUP, which is Oxford University Press. You might have, but there are other publishers out there that you might come across. But mostly it will be OUP or Oxford University Press. And then the date of the book. So all in brackets is the edition, the publisher, and the date in brackets. and then there should be a number after the brackets which indicates the page number that you're referring to.
Super. Gosh, I feel like we've covered so much, but we would never be able to cover would be here until tomorrow talking about the actual Scholar Guide. So, guys,
Absolutely.
we'll never be able to actually do a podcast long enough to talk about all of the variety of sources that you could possibly use in your own work. It is down to you. So these are the basics, really, just to give you a flavor of referencing, generally speaking. But it is really down to you to just download Oscola, have it on your laptops, have it on your, pocket something. But sometimes it's just so good to have the paper, paper copy is really good for when you're working on your laptops or when you're working on your assessment to just keep checking on yourself to make sure that you're referencing correctly. Well, Kelly, do you have any last tips or any last thoughts that you want to share with the students?
Okay, so I think my biggest tip is that there is so much resources available to you in terms of referencing and citation. So if you go onto the DMU library, the law library website, there is a tab across the top that says referencing and ref work, and you need to click that tab. And then they have Oscola Basics from kind of Cite them Right, which is kind of a part of Bloomsbury. There is 2 referencing tutorials which you can do in your own time because they are there all day, every day. You can attend a session or even attend campus to view those. And then on the referencing and ref work page, there is a section about how to reference section. And across the top there is books, cases, legislation, legal journal, all of them. And it tells you exactly how you should reference with examples. And that's my top tip is make sure that you have become familiar with that part of the law library. I don't know, favorite it, save it, print the pages off, whatever it is that you need to do. But that is a one-stop shop for everything referencing.
Super. But guys, don't forget about the Oscola, the monthly Oscola workshop as well. We can
Yes.
talk about referencing there. So you've got quite a few resources. There's
Mm.
also most modules have already maybe some sort of resource for referencing on their module shells. So you just have to ask the question. If you don't know how to find things, just ask the question in terms of modules, individual modules. But obviously, Kelly has given you enough tips. I think that there'd be enough information there to feast for quite some time. Well, Kelly, thank you so much for coming on the podcast. Thank you for sharing your thoughts and your expertise as well. Um, Maybe we will see you in the in a future podcast, hopefully talking about other things. Or, but just to say to students, if you think that there is anything that you would like me to unpack with a member of staff at De Montfort, then just let us know. Email me at my usual email. And yes, let's keep talking. Let's keep talking about how to ace your assessments. Kelly, thank you very much for coming on.
Thank you so much for having me.
Take care, guys. We're gonna put a stop to this. We'll see you soon. Bye bye.
Bye bye bye.